And for cells part 3, we're looking at cell specialization as well as human cells. Right? So let's take a look at these guys. So firstly, we want to figure out differences, right? So what is this? This is a single person. He's a guy. Okay, kind of good looking, sitting there, and he's working, and he's doing everything himself, all by himself, right? So that would be like a unicellular organism, right? All in one, does everything themselves, independent. And then we have a village, right? Where we have now a whole range of people doing a whole range of different things. Some people are coordinating, some people are paying attention, some are taking notes, some are on their own beat, right? But they all have a role in this village. And that's basically a multicellular organism where you have different parts working together, each of them having their own specific role, working together to allow this entire organism to function. Right? So that's big difference between unicellular and multicellular. So what would the villagers be in a multicellular organism? It would be your specialized cells. So first, let's consider some questions. So by the end of this presentation, you should be able to answer these questions. So you can pause and write them down so that you can keep those questions in mind while we're going through the presentation, right? So you can go ahead and pause now. Okay, so now we're going to the next step. We said that in that village, that is your multicellular organism, what would be the villagers? What would be the parts of that village working together, each one having their own specific roles to make the village work, to make that multicellular organism work? Each villager would be your specialized cell. Right? So what is a specialized cell and why is that so important? Why is specialization so important? Well, in order to understand, let's first go back to that unicellular organism, that single person. You have all the characteristics of life. Remember our characteristics of life: growth, reproduction, irritability, movement, etc., etc. These characteristics of life or life processes, they all would be carried out by this one cell. So this cell would reproduce, this cell would respire, this cell would grow, this cell will do everything itself, right? So instead of specialized cells, since it's just one cell, you would have specialized structures. So for example, the contractile vacuole, that's responsible for osmoregulation, regulating the amount of water in the cell. Pseudopod, that helps the cell to move. Food vacuole, nutrition. Nucleus, that's coordinating everything in the body. And you have your membrane that covers everything and contains it. So all of that, all of these different characteristics of life processes occurs in this one cell. And as I said, so it's very independent, it does everything itself, right? This is an example of a specialized cell. As you can see, it has a very different type of shape. Not all specialized cells look like this, of course. It has a very specific shape in order to carry out a specific function. This is what you would see in a multicellular organism. You would see cells that have huge differences between them, right? Even as they have the same basic structure. They have a nucleus, for example. Let's go back to our lymph cell. We still have a nucleus. We still have a basic body, right? We have our cell membrane, right? Some of the parts are still there. It's still doing what it has to do, but the shape is very different, right? And that is a feature of specialization. Shape changes. It will gain or lose certain structures in order to carry out a specific job, right? So whether it's feeding, support, or defense. So this is, if you were to describe it in a sentence, this is what you would say, right? A specialized cell is a cell that's been changed, all right, in order to carry a specific job. And that's very important. So it's been changed. Why has it been changed? To carry out a specific job. And where do you find a specialized cell? In a multicellular organism. So what are the benefits? Well, the biggest benefit, as we see here with our nice little Pokemon being carried around, is that there's a division of labor. And once you have that division of labor, efficiency and speed is increased. So, for example, they're carrying this Pokemon, right? If one of these guys had to do the entire job of carrying this Pokemon, the chance of them getting very far would be really low, right? Because one person is carrying the logs in order to allow the Pokemon to be dragged. Yes, I keep saying Pokemon. I'm aging myself because I really don't know the name of this Pokemon. I know one of the guys, one of the characters is Ash, I think, right? I just find it to be very cute, and it's a really good representation, right? So we have our Ash, and we have all the other guys doing their thing, right? Of course, there's Pikachu doing his part as well. So you have those that are pulling, those that are carrying the logs, and the Pokemon is sleeping, right? So everybody's doing their part. Now, in a multicellular organism, you have 1,000 billion cells in your body working together like this. There's an example given here, which is transport. Transport alone via diffusion is too slow in a larger, more complex organism. So you have a cardiovascular system that works together to transport material throughout your body. All right, it's just like this. If Ash had to drag this Pokemon by himself, as I said before, he wouldn't get very far. But because all of them are working together, they've created a system. They can now transport the sleeping Pokemon from one point to the other a lot faster than if he was doing it himself, right? So that's basically your benefits: efficiency and speed, right? Your various life functions can be carried out more efficiently, and it can be carried out more rapidly due to a division of labor, right? Good. So what are the costs? Because there's no benefit without a cost. Everything comes with a price, right? So what's the cost? Well, the thing is, in order for these cells to do what they do and become very specialized in what they do, it would lose its independence. For example, we have our mature red blood cell, emphasis on mature, because a red blood cell, when it first is developed, it does have a nucleus, but as it matures, it loses its nucleus. Why? Because its role is to transport oxygen, which it does via this protein called hemoglobin. So the idea is, by removing the nucleus, which takes up space, you remove the nucleus, you now have maximum space in your cell to pack it with hemoglobin to carry oxygen from one point to the other. So it doesn't have a nucleus, so it cannot go through cell division. And that's why red blood cells have to be replenished from your bone marrow. The bone marrow handles that for them now. So let's take a look at some of the features that they can do versus what they have to give up. So all specialized cells can respire. They can make a copy of their own DNA, of course, with a slight difference. Red blood cells, because they don't have the nucleus, would not be able to copy their own DNA because the nucleus are the DNA, but definitely respiration, right? They can make their own protein and other large molecules. Again, most, if not all, can do this. Again, red blood cells are a very specific exception. Reproduce. Some specialized cells can reproduce, can go through cell division, some cannot. As I say here, the ability is lost in some types of specialized cells. And then we have what most of them depend on the body systems for: homeostasis. So the body system works to maintain your internal conditions, all right, your temperature, pH, etc. So your body systems do that. And of course, the process of nutrition and excretion, the body systems work together to do that for the entire organism. So for example, excretion. Yes, the cells would release waste products, but the process of removing those waste products from the entire organism is handed over to an entire body system, in this case your urinary system. Let's focus on our human body cells. Now of course this part is more specific to HSB, but again these are features that would still be useful to biology students, CSEC biology students. So you have here your epithelial cells, right? These are the cells that are the surface of organs in your body, and they act as a protective barrier, right? And they form tissue that line the surface of your organs, right? And there's several types. You have your squamous type, simple versus stratified. You have your cuboidal, simple versus stratified, and of course you have your columnar. So they look like these huge columns. Some of them have little hairs at the top, cilia at the top, right? And you have your simple, stratified, pseudo-stratified. And you'd find these different types at different organs, different parts of your body, right? This is another one, your sperm cell. So this one is your male gamete. As you can see, it has a somewhat sophisticated structure around, especially around the head. So the purpose of this cell is to transport its genetic material to the egg and fuse with the egg. As you can see in this picture, they all are gathered around the egg, waiting to try to get to fuse with that egg, right? They all have a tail for swimming, and the energy for swimming is provided by the mitochondria in this mid piece here. This is the nucleus, right, with the genetic material inside. The acrosome on the outside consists of hydrolytic digestive enzymes that are there to break through the surface of the egg so that the sperm can then merge its nucleus with its genetic material with that of the egg. Right, so its entire structure is purely for that. Get to the egg, fuse with the egg. And this is your egg cell. Egg cell, basically, I'm just carrying the other half of the nucleus of the genetic material, and I'm going to provide a way to ensure that only one sperm gets through. Because as one sperm gets through, right, the surface of that cell, of that egg cell, becomes impervious, impenetrable to any other sperm cell. And we saw Mr. Nerve cell already, but this is just another diagram that's giving you a little more detail. Well, same detail, but just prettier. Right, and what is their role? Their role is to transmit nerve impulses in the form of electrical signals. And as I said here, they're the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. And you have the different parts, the axon, your node of Ranvier, cell body, and so on. And here we have muscle cells, also known as myocytes. These are made of cells that have that ability to shorten or contract. So they produce a pulling force. Alright, and by arranging that muscle with your skeleton, you can produce movement of the body. But there are also other types of muscle. There's skeletal muscle tissue, which produces movement and locomotion, I should say. But you also have things like smooth muscle, which you would find in your intestines, in your stomach, which allows for that smooth movement, that churning action, that movement to push material down the intestine, right, to make sure it keeps moving along. So it creates these little waves of movement in the structure. And then you have your cardiac tissue, the cardiac muscle, which produces the pumping action of your heart. So now let's look at structural hierarchy. When we talk about structural hierarchy, we are starting with our specialized cells and then building from there. So it's just showing you how that building up of specialized structures works, starting from your specialized cells. So as we said here, it's the first layer, and that's your first layer of function, specialized cells. You have your different types. And then from specialized cells, the next level would be your tissue, right? So here we have our different types of tissue. Well, we saw a few already. We saw the epithelial cells, which come together to make epithelial tissues. Different types of epithelial tissues. And a tissue is a group of specialized cells working together. Now note, a tissue is made up of just one type of specialized cell. And just to show you how specific it gets, all of these here are epithelial tissues. Yeah, all. However, you notice that there are different types of epithelial tissue. So you have squamous cells, squamous epithelial cells come together to make simple squamous epithelial tissue or stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Not cuboidal, not the mixing up together, right? Just this type. This type makes cuboidal epithelial. Columnar makes columnar epithelial tissue. So it's very specific the type of tissue that's produced. It's always made up of just one type of specialized cell. Right? Good. This level of specificity is basically restricted to just tissues. You're not going to have that same level of specificity going on from here. Right? So when you get the tissues now, the next level is to take those tissues and bring them together to create an organ, right? Or to produce an organ. And that's what an organ is. It's a group of tissues working together. So say in the plant, the leaf is an organ. That organ consists of many types of tissues. You have your palisade, you have your spongy mesophyll, you have your lower epidermis, you have your upper epidermis, you have your gut, your stoma, right? All of these are different tissues coming together, literally layer upon layer, to produce your leaf. In the stomach, you have different types of tissues. Now, because the stomach is mostly muscle, you're going to have different types of muscle tissue coming together, as well as different types of epithelial tissue coming together, those that can produce mucus and hydrochloric acid, etc. They come together to produce your stomach. Now, remember we said the tissue consists of only one type of specialized cell. The organ would be made up of different types of tissues by necessity. And now you have several types of organs coming together to make organ system. And there are several types of organ systems that exist. For example, you have your digestive system. These are several organs working together to allow you to digest your food, the food that you consume. So what are some of the organs that exist? Your esophagus is one, your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, your large intestine, your small intestine, etc. So far we've gone from specialized cells to tissue to organ and then to organ system. Right, and now that we've covered so many different aspects of specialization, specialized cells, and your structural hierarchy, let's return to those questions. So you can, now this is basically the end of the video, but you can take time to sit down now, look at these questions and see if you can answer them. Try to answer them without looking back at the video, and then come back and see how well you did. And that's it for cells. Once again, thank you to Slides Mania for providing the template for this presentation. They provide amazing templates that you can use in your class, in your project, in your presentations. But until then, that's it for cells. Cells Part 3. Happy studying. See you later.